PRC mission statement is false. PLA remarks on U.S. destroyer trespassing. U.S. carrier strike in the South China Sea. Australian frigate closely tracked by PLA submarine. Iran, Russia, and China to drill in Latin America. Workers' strike paralyzes construction in Panama. Scorching heatwave sparks wildfires in Europe. Abe's shooter's mother donated $720,000 to church.
Hello, I'm Johnny. Thank you for joining us on FUNDAY News. It's Friday, July 15th, and here are your top stories. On July 13th, the U.S. 7th Fleet sailed near Paralyzes Island in the South China Sea and announced that the PRC's statement about the U.S. mission was false. USS Benfold conducted the recent freedom of navigation operation in accordance with international law and then continue on to conduct normal operations in international waters. The U.S. stated that it is defending every nation's right to fly, sail, and operate wherever international law allows and will not be deterred by the PRC.
The 7th Fleet said that the PLA Southern Theater Command statement is the latest in a long string of PRC actions to misrepresent lawful U.S. maritime operations and assert its excessive and illegitimate maritime claims at the expense of its southeastern Asian neighbors in the South China Sea. The PRC's behaviors stand in contrast to the United States' adherence to international law and its vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific region. All nations here should be secure in their sovereignty and free from coercion.
According to China Military Online, a spokesperson for the Chinese PLA Southern Theater Command said in a written statement on Wednesday. On July 13th, the guided missile destroyer USS Benfold trespassed into China's territorial waters of Shisha Islands without the Chinese government's permission. The Chinese PLA Southern Theater Command organized naval and air forces to conduct tracking and monitoring on the U.S. destroyer and warned it off. However, U.S. 7th Fleet denied the PRC's statement as a misrepresentation of the current situation.
This is GoCat 2062 on 1215.
I'm a United States military.
The 7th Fleet said that the PRC, Taiwan, and Vietnam each claim sovereignty over the Parcel Islands. In violation of international law, all three parties require either permission or advance notification before a military vessel or warship engages in innocent passage through the territorial sea. Under international law, as reflected in the Law of the Sea Convention, the ships of all states, including their warships, enjoy the right of innocent passage through the territorial sea.
Following the correction statement, the 7th Fleet released its latest information on July 13th from the South China Sea and announced that the Ronald Reagan Carrier Strike Group is operating in the South China Sea for the first time during its 2022 deployment. Rear Admiral Michael Donnelly, commander of Task Force 70 Carrier Strike Group 5, said, "We provide assured capability to uphold the rules-based international order in this body of water and anywhere else we will sail, fly, and operate."
In the news release, the 7th Fleet said that while in the South China Sea, the strike group is conducting maritime security operations, which include flight operations with fixed and rotary wing aircraft, maritime strike exercises, and coordinated tactical training between surface and air units. And with the help of 35 other maritime allies and partners, the U.S. Navy has operated in the Indo-Pacific region for more than 70 years, providing credible, ready forces to help preserve peace and prevent conflict.
According to a report published by Australia ABC News on July 13th, the Royal Australian Navy's Anzac-class frigate HMAS Parramatta was reportedly tracked by a Chinese PLA Navy's nuclear power submarine, another warship, and multiple aircraft. The Australian Defence Department has cited operational security reasons for not discussing the incidents, but military sources claim HMAS Parramatta has been closely tracked by the People's Liberation Army over recent weeks.
We want to get the submarines as soon as we can.
An Australian defence figure familiar with the interaction said, "Formal challenges have occurred, such as telling us that we're entering China's territorial waters, and the most intense activity occurred in the East China Sea. The media reported that the ANZAC-class frigate has traveled to Vietnam and South Korea, and then on to Japan via the South China Sea and East China Seas as part of a regional presence deployment, which has included several joint military exercises with other navies.
The Washington Free Beacon reported that Iran, Russia, and China are gearing up to run a series of major war drills in Latin America in mid-August. Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro is scheduled to host the War Games. According to a report by the Center for a Secure Free Society, a think tank that tracks malign regimes, Russia, China, Iran, and 10 other nations will move their militaries into the Western Hemisphere that will pre-position forward-deployed military assets in Latin America and the Caribbean.
On Sunday, Buenos Aires formally joined the Belt and Road Initiative during President Alberto Fernandez's state visit to China. In doing so, it has become Latin America's largest economy to formally join Beijing's flagship infrastructure and investment project.
The Washington Free Beacon reported that China has also been active in the region. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi last month inked several economic deals in Latin America, making calls to Uruguay, Nicaragua, and Ecuador. China's Belt and Road Initiative has made way into Argentina, where it is working to build infrastructure projects. Before the drills in Latin America, Iran, China, and Russia held joint naval drills for the third time in the northern Indian Ocean, dubbed the 2022 Maritime Security Belt, in January 2022.
Workers on strike paralyzed construction activities on Wednesday, July 13th in Panama, with protests having been underway more than a week throughout the country against the high cost of living and creating a situation where some food items are increasingly scarce in the capital. The powerful Sun Trucks Construction Union launched a 24-hour warning strike that was adhered to by some 96% of workers in the sector. Those on strike were demanding lower prices for medication, food, and fuel, as well as a general pay increase.
En las manifestaciones se escuchan cánticos contra lo que los ciudadanos consideran abusos del poder, como que los funcionarios no rebajaron sus salarios, incluso algunos se los subieron.
The media reported that the construction strike on Wednesday, just like the teacher strike and multiple street protests that began last week, is being held despite the government's announcements that it would extend to the general public a freeze on fuel prices and halt certain austerity measures designed to collect the necessary funds to subsidize the price of gasoline. President Laurencio Corzo previously announced austerity measures on Tuesday, including a reduction of 10% in the state payroll and the suspension of pay increases.
Thousands of firefighters battled more than 20 blazes that raged on Wednesday, July 13th in Portugal, Spain, Croatia, and southern France, amid an unusual heat wave that pushed temperatures above 45 degrees Celsius in some parts of Europe. Reuters reported more than 2,700 hectares have burned so far in France's Gironde region. AP reported about 6,500 people have been evacuated from campgrounds and villages in the forested area in the region outside Bordeaux in southwest France.
A red alert for almost half of Portugal. Much of the drought-hit country is at maximum fire risk. Dozens of blazes have already forced hundreds of residents to evacuate.
The media reported that the World Meteorological Organization warned on Tuesday that the heat wave was spreading and intensifying in large parts of Europe. In Spain's western region of Extremadura, bordering Portugal, firefighters battled a blaze that swept into Salamanca province in the region of Castile and Leon, burning more than 4,000 hectares. Parts of Extremadura, Andalusia, and Galicia regions were on red alert for extreme heat. Spain's highest temperature on Wednesday stood at 45.6 Celsius in Huelva province.
Nikkei Asia reported that the mother of the man who killed former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is believed to have donated about $720,000 to a religious organization. On Monday, July 11th, the Family Federation for World Peace and Unification, widely known as the Unification Church, said that the mother of the man who fatally shot former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is a follower of the religious group. Nikkei said the man suspected of assassinating Shinzo Abe, Tetsuya Yamagaki, had resolved last autumn to kill the former Japanese Prime Minister.
Yamagami Tetsuya, who fatally shot Abe on July 8th, has blamed the religious cult for bankrupting his family and said he thought Abe had ties with the Unification Church.
The media reported that the president of the Japan branch of the religious group, Tomihiro Tankata, said in a news conference in Tokyo that Tetsuya Yamagami is not a follower and he had not directly expressed grudges to any of the group's members. According to the media, investigative sources have said that the 41-year-old suspect harbored a grudge against the group as his mother had made a huge donation. Nikki cited Japan's police sources as saying that the amount his mother had donated to the Unification Church reached $720,000.
And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us on FUNDAY News. Let's make every day a fun day. I'm Johnny Wu, your host. I will see you next time.